Alright, let's do it. 3, 2, 1, boom.
As the clock was ticking inside the Miami National, hacker Albert Gonzalez prepared for his final escape. Laid out was his fake passport, a gun, and a 6-foot-tall Estonian escort to keep him company.
Damn, look at her feet!
But it wasn't the Russians chasing after him this time. It was the feds. They were
What do you mean this time? Wait, this guy has hacked before?
determined to catch him as one of the biggest cyber criminals of the 21st century. See, Albert had been the Fed's most valuable informant for the past 7 years, ingraining the Secret Service into the world of credit card fraud and helping them search for the hacker who had stolen 184 million credit cards. But that hacker they were looking for, that was Albert Gonzalez this entire time. See, as an informant, Albert led the feds on goose chases that went absolutely nowhere. He helped us
Honestly, I would do that too. If I knew I was eventually gonna get caught, I would do the same thing. Lead them on a wild goose chase and just waste their time.
fraud rings that were in reality his own competitors. And he used this informant status at the Secret Service to operate one of the biggest credit card fraud rings in history. Right underneath their nose. But with Albert's recent hacks being covered in the news as one of the largest in history, Albert knew it was a matter of time before they caught on to him. This is the story of Albert Gonzalez, the FBI's most wanted hacker. Now, raised in Miami with Cuban immigrant parents, Albert grew up with the American dream. But as a kid working for his dad's gardening business, Albert soon knew that blue-collar work, it wasn't for him. See, like any other kid, he'd rather be on the computer. Now, through IRC chat rooms online, Albert began ingraining himself into the world of hacking, finding friends who were more interested in downloading service manuals for routers.
I never used IRC. I think my brother did, though.
Routers just for fun. Like a sponge, Albert absorbed the chat rooms, learning how to hack in the crevices of the internet that were
That's crazy.
And at 14, the kid knew he had a talent. But spending every night online, Albert's grades slowly began to fall. And that's when the trouble began to start. Now, joining the hacking crew called the Keebler Elves, Albert was now known as Soup Nazi.
Why is your name Soup Nazi?
And began pulling pranks like any other kid would. You know, like defacing international government websites just to gain worldwide attention, like hacking into the government.
It's a Seinfeld reference. I did not watch Seinfeld. I think I know what you're talking about, though. I think I saw a clip of that.
Government of India and changing their website to say, "What's with the red dot? Why are your women so ugly?" While the pranks were fun and games, back on the chat rooms, hackers were starting to make some serious cash. And Albert, as a poor kid, wanted in. Now, with the rise of online shopping in the late 90s, security was often an afterthought. And for hackers, that was a goldmine.
Well, they didn't have people that were smart enough to do it, and they had no idea.
Now, cold carding, it's a fraud that exists even today, and Albert learned the art of it, learning how to hack into websites to steal credit cards just with the breeze. Albert purchased Jordans, video games, brand new computers. Everything was on him. And to ensure he wasn't caught, he had all the goods shipped to a home for sale near his school so he could just pick it up during recess.
That's so smart! Dude! His IQ is off the charts!
And for a 14-year-old kid, that's like winning
so
the jackpot. And on the hacking chat room, Soup Nazi was becoming a legend.
Oh my god.
But when Albert's dad found the receipt for a $10,000 computer in his bedroom, his dad staged an intervention, and Albert promised to cut it out.
Pendejo. Dad, not the felt!
But it was already too late. Answering the door to the FBI, they informed him that his son was in big trouble. Why?
My boy, my man, with Cuban parents, he would have beaten his ass.
Oh, you know, last month Albert hacked into NASA. But as long as Albert could explain how he hacked into NASA, they wouldn't press charges. So disappointed that Albert, his kid who was so smart, could get into so much trouble, drove him down to the FBI so he could show them how a 14-year-old kid broke into their government agency's security.
Dude, that's insane.
But this wouldn't be the last time Albert ever worked with the feds. Now, 5 years later, right out of high school, Albert graduates with a clean record and moves up to Manhattan during the dot-com boom to try to make money the legal way. Now, startups flush with cash, Albert was beginning to make 6 figures right out of high school, and his parents—
6 figures back in the 1990s? Holy.
Parents were proud. I mean, the kid had seriously turned his life around. Like musical chairs, Albert went to the next company who could pay him even more. He began
That's
partying
amazing.
at the hippest bars in the city, railing lines all around town. Albert was large and in charge.
That's like Cuban in him. as a cocaine.
This closing bell might as well have been an alarm, so savage was the selling.
But in 2002, when the music stopped, Albert was laid off, and the dot-com boom was done. And even worse, Albert had nothing saved. He had blown all of his money on drugs and partying. So, broke, desperate, and refusing to disappoint his parents by moving back home, Albert crawled back into the only way he knew to make easy money: the hacking forums. Now, after a 3-year hiatus, hackers were so stoked to see Soup Nazi back online, because in the world of carding, hackers were making serious bank, and Albert had come back at the perfect time. Now, called shadowcrew.com, it was a new invite-only forum for vetted carders and hackers. Like the mob, you had to know somebody to get in.
Latin American forum.
He was in. Now, on Shadow Crew, Russian hackers sold databases of stolen credit cards.
О, зарегистрирован 2001 год! Oh my god! My name is Script. I was born in Greece and also a founder for Carter Planet. Now I provide very good dumps of USA, Visa Classic, Visa Gold, MasterCard, AMX, Discovery Platinum for $100. Now I can provide the best dumps from Canada.
By the thousands.
Oh my god.
Craftsmen from Ukraine sold fake passports that could pass an immigration check. And Chinese vendors sold credit card cloning equipment for the newest fraud. Mind you, this is like 10 years before the dark web, so this was insane at the time. Now, unlike the old hacking IRC chats that were strictly anonymous, reputation mattered here. Vendors had reviews, feds were ratted out, and users had...
Feds were ratted out, of course they were.
And for the who's who in the hacking world, shadowcrew.com was the place to be at. And Albert was in heaven. But oh boy, the kid had so much to learn. You see, the carding that Albert knew, using stolen credit cards to buy something online, have it sent to a drop point, and then sell it on eBay, that was all old news.
How do you go card okay?
Because hackers had figured out how to clone stolen credit cards so they could take the cloned card to the ATM and withdraw thousands in cash within seconds. And the way it worked was truly genius. Now, a credit card's broken into 2 data tracks. Track 1 is for the information you can see on the credit card. That's like the number, the expiration date. That's the carding that Albert knew. But to clone a card, you need the data you can't see, which is track 2. And recently, hackers had figured out how to clone track 2 data. And with the clone card, you can take that to an ATM and withdraw cash on a stolen debit card or do a cash advance on a credit card within seconds. And this meant hackers were making thousands of dollars a day in cash. And with all the guides and equipment sold to do this on Shadow Crew,
that's the problem though with disorganized crime. Even if you try to organize it, someone's gonna get greedy and someone's gonna get caught and someone's gonna squeal. That's why mafias are really hard to like root out, because there's and cartels as well. With this kind of thing, it's fun and disorganized, but it's really easy to like get caught. Real easy. Ratting.
Albert got a cloner, blank cards, and a database of stolen numbers that got right to work. Within months, Albert was making thousands of dollars cloning cards all across Manhattan. Soup Nazi, fueled by his endless lines of blow, shares all of his carding tips online. He writes startup guides.
But that seems like a really bad idea, using the credit cards all in the same place. Like, that's my first thought. Blowing it out on blow, you know?
It's for newbies, and he gains credibility and moves up to the most respected position on Shadow Crew. Wow. Moderator. But moderator wasn't all that Soup Nazi cracked it up to be. Now, chowing down on donuts at midnight, NYPD watches an attractive woman working an ATM for over an hour and a half, inserting card after card, fistfuls of cash were being shoved into her purse. Suspicious, they bring her downtown. And find, sadly, it's not even a woman. It's actually a man in a wig and dress with a half-grown beard, 30 credit cards, $15K in cash, and 1 ID for Albert Gonzalez.
Oh no.
But with Albert refusing to talk, they get warrants in hand, search his apartment, and oh boy, they find a treasure trove. They find hard drives filled with thousands of stolen credit card numbers, dozens of computers, card cloners, yay up the yin-yang.
Well, I mean, this is before femboys were even a thing, yeah. Who knew this could go back that far?
But with Albert refusing to confess about anything he had done, and it clearly looking like some kind of fraud, they call in Agent Ward from the Secret Service to find out.
Ooh.
Now, why the Secret Service, you might ask? Well, not only do they protect the president, but they also protect the money system in the United States, so a fraud like this, right up their alley. But Agent Ward hadn't seen a fraud like this ever. The cloned credit cards, the hard drives full of stolen numbers, men in dresses, none of it made sense. So Agent Ward presents Albert with 2 ways this whole thing can go. If he wants to stay silent, That would cost him 20 years in prison.
Yo, dismantle the Federal Reserve.
For the drugs at his apartment. But if Albert talked about what he
Bring
was
back
doing,
gold.
perhaps a better arrangement could be made. For 7 hours, Albert spills his guts about the world of carding. He talks about an elite forum that brought together the best hackers in the world, shadowcrew.com. There you could purchase credit cards that were taken from skimmers at gas stations or hackers who had stolen them. Carters in the forum.
Oh yeah, I had a friend that got skimmed or whatever it's called. Skimmed? Yeah, skimming.
Clone stolen cards to cash out at ATMs. And to keep all of the feds out, you had to be vetted to get in. And Albert, oh yeah, the guy was a moderator. So with the top user in their custody and how hard it was to get even into the site, Agent Ward tells Albert if he wants to turn informant and bring down Shadow Crew, he'll drop the charges. Albert was either way, so he takes the deal. But what he didn't realize,
he should have said, "I'm gonna die,"
was that it was not a guarantee. So called Operation Firewall, they were gonna take down shadowcrew.com, and Albert was their inside man. Leasing a warehouse out of New Jersey so the IP address could not be tracked back to the feds. Albert began inviting dozens of undercovers into the site who he had help make non-Fed-like usernames like Iceman and Coca-Cola.
It's either drugs, sex, or racism.
And hooked up to the TV, Albert's computer taught agents all.
Yeah, man, just call yourself Coca-Cola. Nobody will ever suspect you.
About the lingo and the basic frauds on the site. And within weeks, agents were doing their own undercover buys of stolen credit cards, fake driver's license, and they were amazed at the quality these vendors were providing.
Wow.
Now, while informants are generally held at a distance, the agents began to really like Albert. Calling him by his online handle, Soup Nazi, they began.
Yo, what's up, Soup Nazi? Yeah!
Playing basketball on breaks, had inside jokes, and even helped him sober up and clean up his act. And Albert finds a real thrill in playing for both sides of the team.
Maybe the feds aren't so bad.
But after months of a smooth infiltration and controlled buys, Operation Firewall had one huge problem. They couldn't indict anyone. You see, Shadow Crew members really cared about their privacy, and that meant they used proxies and VPNs to hide their location. So to find out where they were at, the feds used that care of privacy against them in the most geniusly simple way. In a post to the site, Albert writes, "I've created a custom VPN that's $30 a month to hide everyone's IP addresses. If you're doing anything sketch on the site, you gotta use it."
Oh no.
Everyone's stoked, hackers are signing up, more frauds are getting done now thinking that everything was even more private now. But oh,
that's actually so dumb that worked. Sounds like a honey trap. It is. If you watch the video, it's a honey trap.
Boy,
honey
this
pot.
VPN was used for all the wrong reasons. Because it was actually a Secret Service wiretap. They had access to everything. And Albert was finally going to get off the hook, but at the cost of everyone else over. But what if you wanted your own VPN that didn't log your activity or maybe have a backdoor to the Secret Service?
It's coming.
You know, it is too perfect of an integration to not do. Today's video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Now, picking a VPN is some serious business. Most of them say, oh, we don't log the user's activity, but in the end, I mean, you're really just taking them at their word for it.
I'm getting up, I'm doing white duck ass.
They have been independently verified by some of the top security research firms in the world that have a strict no-log policy. But more than a VPN, Surfshark One has malware protection that protects me across the web from any sketchy links or emails from stealing my identity. And my favorite part of Surfshark is alternative ID. You can use it to make a fake email, sign up for a website, click the link to verify, and know that in the end, I didn't give that website my real email, so I'm not going to get spammed till the end of time. So with their super fast and easy to use VPN with a security suite that just runs super lightweight on my browser, Surfshark allows me to
sit down, it makes no noise.
So to get 4 extra months of Surfshark for free,
my ass be
click
clapping.
the link below, surfshark.com/VinceVintage. There's no code, you just click the link and you're going to get 4 extra months of Surfshark.
How do I know Vince Vintage isn't the federal agent that's just gonna keylog me anyway?
For free. Surfshark.com/VinceVintage. So coordinating the raids of 28 Shadow Crew members in 8 different countries, headlines broke around the world of the largest credit card fraud in the world finally shut down. Those busted were looking at decades in prison. Companies and the public were just shocked at the systematic scale of credit card fraud. But fearing retaliation from all the Shadow Crew members who would eventually find out that Albert was the informant, he's taken back home to Miami by the Secret Service for a fresh start with his family. And Agent Ward felt that he had really been reformed and that he would not turn to crime again. But the
Yeah, surely he's not gonna do it again. I think we've seen enough. We have seen, I really like this guy's channel. We have seen enough videos that we know how this is gonna end.
The question everyone wanted to know was it enough for the Secret Service to drop the charges?
Yeah.
Now, a year later, back at square one, Albert felt just trapped in Miami because no one wanted to hire him. Because even a year later, they still had not dropped the charges. Depressed at the thought of prison, unable to work anywhere, all of that would change when Agent Ward showed up at his doorstep once again.
Let's work again,
now,
bro.
While Shadow Crew's takedown had been a great success, like a game of whack-a-mole, clones were popping up all over the web, and this whole carding fraud had gotten even worse. And Ward had the opportunity of a lifetime for Albert. He could become a paid informant for the Secret Service. He'd make 70 grand a year, he'd get an office,
not
sounds
bad.
great. And oh yeah, don't worry, we're still working to drop the charges. But Albert just wanted to move on and get a real job, but in the end, he didn't really—
They're stringing him along, he's gonna get that payback, chat.
So when
Fuck
Golden
the feds.
handcuffs, Albert turns informant once again. Now, the world of carding was moving fast. Skimming techniques got even more refined. Hackers developed exploits to steal databases never seen before. And gone were the days of small-time hackers trying to make a few bucks. Cashers had managers, hackers had liaisons. And carding empires began to resemble like corporate structures with the revenue of it as well. And Albert grew so jealous of them. Now, while setting up sting operations on hacking forums, while it sounds exciting to us, it became really a grind for Albert. I mean, he began to vicariously live through all of these hackers that he was setting up, knowing that if he was involved in the game again, oh, he would use his insider knowledge to make himself millions of dollars. So
he's gonna do it. Evil genius!
Months in a dead-end job, with the threat of prison just held over his head, Albert came to the conclusion, well, if he was gonna be considered a criminal by not having these charges dropped, why not just be a criminal? Now, in the 2000s, companies were installing Wi-Fi at breakneck speeds. Sensitive corporate data didn't go through wires anymore. Hell no. Floated through the air. With Wi-Fi networks out in the open—
Dude, those discs that came with it, I think we still have those somewhere. We never threw them out, I don't think. Yeah, those discs that come in, the Wi-Fi.
Public, often without a password. Albert knew this was his time to strike. Because the new meta of carding was war driving.
We are war driving. It's a computer term for driving around with a laptop, tapping into unsecured wireless networks.
Oh,
Hackers would drive around with an 8—
Dude, this permeated into the culture really, like, deeply. I remember my parents would be, like, really paranoid because they saw, like a news story about war driving. Yeah, you drive and capture packets, and then you just, like, you know, get in there, and you can, like, steal their data, essentially. They still— I used to do this. Oh, you little rat! You stole my packets!
Foot-tall antenna to search for vulnerable corporate Wi-Fi networks to hack into. And, well, today it seems obvious that maybe have a password on your network. Back then, no one truly cared. Within minutes of war driving, you could have access to the entire network at the company, stealing—
I think people only started caring after, like, 2010 or something. My parents saw that one thing and they were like, hell no, we're putting the password on there.
Every little thing being done on the network. Millions of dollars were on the table with war driving, and for Albert, this was it. But as an informant, it could not be Albert war driving, because going to prison as an informant, yeah, that's how you die. But the risk was worth the reward. Although Albert couldn't do it alone. So he goes to the best hackers he knows in the game for the plan of a lifetime.
They really look like hackers.
So he goes to the best hackers he knows in the game.
Oh my god! The glasses, dude! These two look pretty normal, but that glasses are killing me, bro.
The plan of a lifetime. Stephen Watt, aka Unix terrorist, a top programmer at Goldman Sachs. He was a 7-foot-tall amateur bodybuilder, a self-described world's fastest typer on sub-anesthetic doses of Special K. Jonathan—
I'm sorry. Go back 1 second. World's fastest typer on sub-anesthetic doses of Special K. This guy did drugs and did fat type racers. Holy!
Jonathan James. At 16 years old, Jonathan hacked into the International Space Station, served a 6-month sentence, and became the youngest hacker
he actually got prosecuted.
Ever put behind bars, which would traumatize him permanently, but At the end of this video, his story actually ends up being kind of tragic. Christopher Scott, known as UT, untouchable. An expert hacker who loved loose women and diamond chains. He flunked out of high school after writing a virus that destroyed his entire school's network. Then we have Patrick Toey. Honestly, there's nothing really cool about the guy. He was just Albert's yes man and did all of his dirty work.
His last name's Toey.
And Albert called it Operation Get Rich or Die Trying. They were going to try to pull off what would become the biggest hack in history. During the day, Albert would work informant. During the night, he would help them hack into the infrastructure of all of these networks.
It's like reverse hacking.
And now we're driving the freeways of Miami. UT and Jonathan Jane with their makeshift Wi-Fi rig searched for one thing: unsecured corporate Wi-Fi networks. And after days of searching, they finally discovered that TJ Maxx, you know, where it's never the same selection twice, had just gotten Wi-Fi. Yeah. Better yet, it was unsecured. Now, from the comfort of their car, they hacked inside TJ Maxx and within minutes began stealing every credit card used in
so many white women. So many white women's credit cards are gone.
That store in real time. Now, the plan would go like this. Jonathan and UT would steal that Track2 data, Albert would create a clone of the card, and he would send it off to Patrick to go use at ATMs all across the country. Doing what Albert did in Address basically years ago. And bam, they were making a ton of money. But through the months, this little plan started to show some cracks. One, it took a lot of time. They would have to sit there outside the store and steal one card at a time the entire day. And two, not every card was worth cloning. Meaning some were maxed out, some had thousands in cash. In a TJ Maxx, a discount store, not every customer was loaded. But
you gotta go to the unsecured Coco Chanel, Gucci, Versace mall. That's where you gotta go, gentlemen.
Albert wants more. He wants the entire
go big,
database.
Go big.
So he hacks into TJ Maxx corporate, all because one store had a Wi-Fi password. And after days of searching through and through, he finds the motherlode. The database of 40 million credit cards used at TJ Maxx all across the United States, worth millions on the black market. Albert could retire on an island by just selling that database alone. Although one problem.
In the Cayman Islands.
Albert's goal was to make enough money, but his old method just wasn't enough because however many people came into that TJ Maxx store was however many cards he could steal. Albert needed to expand, but hiring more hackers would risk the enterprise. So Albert takes the crew out on the town to brainstorm a better way. Now at Miami's biggest rave, filled with candy bracelets and ecstasy tablets, renting a suite above the rave, Albert had taken his crew out for a little retreat. Trays of K, trays of C, tabs of E. They started feeling their hair and expressing their deep love for one another and brainstorming.
I love you guys. I'm on ketamine. I love you guys.
C, tabs of E.
Oh my
goodness. They started
goodness.
feeling their hair and expressing their deep love for one another.
I love you guys. You don't need drugs. You don't need drugs. You don't have to know that. You don't need to go get high to know that, okay?
Brainstorming how to hack TJ Maxx. Chowing down his jaws with dilated pupils, Albert turns to the room to explain an epiphany he just had. And it wasn't the kind that you regret the next day when you're coming down. Mind you, this actually happened. Now, with access into TJ Maxx corporate network, theoretically, they had access to all of the stores. Now, Albert had discovered that when a credit card is swiped, it's unencrypted. That's how they could steal it. But when the credit card number was stored on the servers, that's when it was encrypted, and that was the database they had found.
Right.
What if instead of someone physically sniffing the network outside the store, they could write some kind of program to virtually sniff the network at every TJ Maxx in the country, stealing credit cards not at one store, but thousands in real time. The plan was genius. But the only dude who could write this program, Steven, was in the midst of a K-hole. But with his body fried, his brain was intact. And he tells Albert to grab the computer and type out what he says. Line by line, Steven is programming in C perfectly through his words to send.
He's literally saying it! No, that's actually unironically kind of insane. Remembering all that. And like having him type it all out for him because he's in paralysis. This is a real thing, by the way. Yeah, he's dictating code. Like I only know very surface level coding and like how it like works. Doing that off by heart through memory is actually crazy.
Syntax is on point. The understanding of lower level abstraction is flawless, and to everyone's surprise,
that's crazy, dude.
Stephen Watt was f***ed up on horse tranquilizer and wrote a tool that they would use to take down 200 of the largest companies in the United States. And its name was BlahBlah.
It's because he's BlahBlah drug goo goo gaga. President call it ketamine or something.
Now, getting home from the hangover that month, Steven refined BlahBlah even further. He made it erase its tracks to keep it even more
Dude,
stealthy.
he's a Giga Chad. Look at that jawline. Oh my god, he's got bitches.
20 different antivirus softwares to make it undetectable. And he set up Latvian servers to have it connect to. Now, the way it worked, it was almost like so simple it was genius. Now, using a secret VPN they installed at TJ Maxx corporate, they could go inside the network without raising alarms. BlahBlah would get installed at every TJ Maxx store, and it would sniff that own network, stealing the unencrypted debit cards and credit cards in real time. Essentially, what they were doing with the Wi-Fi antenna outside the store, they were now doing virtually. But instead of BlahBlah sending a big packet of stolen credit cards every second, which would raise alarms, BlahBlah would bundle them up once a day and drip feed it through a little VPN connection to the Latvian servers. You know, to keep the numbers offshore and away from prying eyes. And oh boy, did this work.
I have a feeling that with all of this being thought through so well and they're so smart, I think the reason is going to be them breaking or it's just going to be them ratting. One of them's gonna rat and squeal.
Flawlessly. Because Albert could steal and clone a card before it could even be reported stolen. Gone were the days of hanging outside of TJ Maxx like a loser.
Yeah.
Soon they installed BlahBlah at Office Max, DSW, retailers all across the country. And within a year, they had 45.6 million stolen credit cards on that Latvian server. But to clone them all, Albert needed help. And he went to the only guy that he knew how. Now, with Eastern Europe dominating the carding game, the biggest player in the game is Maxim.
Yastrimsky! He's from Ukraine! Oh my god, he's almost the same age as my brother, dude. That's insane.
He ran a network of thousands of cashers and cloners all around the world. In China, he had teams making perfectly cloned cards.
What if my brother's a hacker,
thousands of cashers, they would use these clones all at ATMs, drain the accounts out, and then send back Maxim 80% of the money. But if the casher didn't send that cash back, well, they would get their asses blacklisted from the game. Essentially doing what Albert was doing, but on an international corporate scale. But recently, Maxim had been running into problems with the stolen cards he bought. After cloning the cards in China, shipping it out to Nigeria, only to find out the card was canceled. It was causing Maxim a hell of a lot in cash. If Maxim could clone a card right after it was stolen, he'd be killing it. Now, getting friendly on the Russian carding forums, Albert and Maxim...
Здравствуйте, вы зашли на сайт Carder Planet. This is a real Russian forum, look at that! Oh my gosh!
Find out that they both had what the other one wanted. Maxim had the network, Albert had the numbers. But Albert knew how dangerous carding was, so by having thousands of trained cashers potentially do this dirty work all around the world, it was perfect. And for Maxim, he could have millions of stolen credit cards guaranteed. My
cousin's name is
Maxim.
Over
a virtual handshake, they partner up, and within months,
maybe he's the hacker.
Absolute killing. Albert was getting $250,000 in cash shipped to his
$250,000
condo monthly. Maxim
monthly. I'm gonna throw up. Oh my god, a monthly shipment of $250,000, and this isn't even now. This is like in what, 2010?
Traveling all around the world in 5-star hotels, first-class flights, running his network of thousands of cashers like a seasoned CEO. What could go
crazy.
Wrong? Largest data breach in U.S. history is getting even larger tonight.
Now, in 2007, the FBI discovered that TJ Maxx had just been the source of the single biggest credit card data breach in history. Over the course of a year, millions of cards were stolen.
Turns out the biggest security breach in history was as easy as a hacker sitting outside a Marshall's near St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah, I think this is probably what my parents saw or something of this nature, because I don't remember when. I was like too dumb to understand it. They were like, oh no, we gotta encrypt our shit. Like, I was like, what the fuck is encrypting? The fuck are you talking about?
And pointing a telescope-shaped antenna toward the store to capture the wireless transactions going on inside.
Although the feds had no idea who was behind it. But luckily for Albert, he had stopped hacking TJ Maxx months ago. See, he noticed the cybersecurity firm General Dynamics trying to hack Albert from inside TJ Maxx, and that's when he knew it was time to leave.
The white hackers.
Quote, after those at General Dynamics almost owned me with the 0 day, well, I was
Chat, it was different, okay? It was a different time.
Owning TJ Maxx.
The gamers were out.
losing $42 million in shareholder value. TJ Maxx couldn't even state how much or even what was even stolen since BlahBlah deleted its traces. All that they knew is it was millions of credit cards stolen, and all Albert knew, he had gotten away with it. But Albert was still an informant for the Secret Service. He was leading the feds on goose chases that went absolutely nowhere. He was setting up sting operations for rival carters who competed with this business.
Oh my god. Oh my god, he fucked over his homies, or not his homies, but you know, like his, you know, his people, you know?
Albert had created a black market monopoly for himself, and oh boy, was it damn profitable. But with the stress of this TJ Maxx hack going public, Albert began showing up late, half awake on the job, and gets fired from the Secret Service for a lack of performance. Because even now, years later, Agent Ward really felt that his old friend Soup Nazi, his heart wasn't in it anymore. But as a token of gratitude, he finally got Albert's charges dropped. Albert could leave the carding game, he could get a real job, he could move on and clean up his act. But Albert was at the top of his game, making $500,000.
Oh no, he really wants to stay in the game, man.
It was intoxicating. Because whether hubris or greed, it was too early to leave yet. So Albert goes even harder.
Greed.
Now back at home, Maxim was demanding more cards. But with TJ Maxx being a no-go, Albert called in another brainstorm to figure out the next move. So after brainstorm sesh filled with the lines, powders, and glow, he thought, what does every store have? A credit card terminal. So why not hack the company that makes those? He could access the credit cards of thousands of stores at the risk of only hacking one. It was genius. Now the team got together and they stole the engineering documents for the most popular credit card terminal in the US, the Microsystems point of sale. So working on a beefed up version of BlahBlah, Steven made it even more discreet and more powerful than before. But how do you get BlahBlah on thousands of terminals all across the US?
A virus.
They found a company with shoddy security, in this case Dave & Buster's, hacked inside of its corporate server.
Dave & Buster's, not Dave & Buster's, no!
And then pushed a bunk update with BlahBlah installed to it on all of their terminals. It was genius. BlahBlah got installed on so many terminals that it is still unknown to this day how many they got it on. Stealing tens of millions of credit cards, Maxim and Albert had figured out a literal money printing machine, and the crew was living it up. Chris began having 10-person orgies with Miami's finest escorts of the night. Albert paid cash for a beachfront Miami condo, convertible BMWs, and began burying millions of dollars. But what's insane about this is Stephen Watt, the guy that wrote BlahBlah, the guy responsible really for all of this, did not make a nickel. But he didn't want to. He wrote BlahBlah to screw over the man. Now, while
That's so pissed. I just did it to screw over the man. I was high on ketamine. I was in a paralysis. I read the code off. Dude, imagine you have a kid and that you're that son and that's your grandpa. He got high and wrote a code, like a program to fuck over the man, and he didn't make a dime on it. It's actually the anti-hero.
He was traveling in luxury all around the world. The feds were catching on to him being one of the biggest players in the carding game, because without Albert there to steer the Secret Service away from Maxim's operation, they slowly began to question, where was he getting all of these cards from? So called Operation Carter Chaos, the Secret Service began tailing Maxim all across the world. And they were trying to find the perfect time to clone his hard drive and comb through all of his messages to figure out his supplier. Now, for months, they tailed him at cigar lounges in Dubai to strip bars in Thailand. But when the Secret Service
Ladyboy bar
lured Maxim with escorts into a Turkish nightclub, that's when they finally cloned his hard drive.
Oh my God.
But after months of this worldwide chasing all around the world, they would finally crack the case, and his hard drive, was encrypted. They couldn't read on it. So just to get his password, the Turkish escorts bring Maxim into the police, and after a 36-hour Turkish torture session filled with escorts watching.
Oh, we got ads? I'm so sorry. I didn't see that. I was too entranced by... I was too entranced by the Turkish escorts and the torture. Actual torture? I wouldn't put it past them. In 2007? Yeah, probably. Yeah. It's always the women. I know. Never trust women. Chat, don't never trust women. Women are bad, okay? Yeah. if it's just women. Women will fuck you over. Oh gosh. But they're so pretty. Yeah, they're called succubuses. Yep. Every country does torture, some just don't hide it. Yeah, you're right. Yep. I need to pee. I'm gonna hold it though. I'm gonna hold it, chat. Hold it in the pee. Pee retention. Brum bum bum. Brum bum bum bam. Shit. Yo, Living Froggo, thank you the sub. This in the bottle? I'm good. You'd never lie to us, right, Alana? Yes. Yes. I would never lie to you. Where were you on the night of Michael Jackson's murder? Yeah? I would never kill you, chat. Never. Swimming? I do like swimming. I really do like swimming a lot. Used to go to the beach lots. Sorry, I was reading something. Ads are over. Nice. What's for dinner? I made chili yesterday. I have still leftover chili. I'm probably gonna eat that. Or steak. I don't know. Whatever I feel like. I feel like cooking. Reheating the chili's not hard. Cooking's tough sometimes. Get tired. Alright. Let's watch. Keep watching. Sorry about that. My bad. Wasn't paying attention.
He finally tells him the password. Now, between the tens of millions of stolen credit card numbers, malware, sniffers, viruses, they finally find the American responsible for Maxim's success.
Soup Nazi!
Like a dagger to the heart, the Secret Service knew it was Albert. He had the skills to pull it off. He had the knowledge to do it. It was Maxim's operation. The whole thing added up. But back in the States where there were human rights laws, they needed to find if Soup Nazi really was Albert Gonzalez. Now, back in Miami, Albert thought about how successful he had been, despite all of his setbacks in his life. Making over $250,000 a month, responsible for an international...
That is so mind-blowing to me. And it's untaxed, too, because, it's criminal money.
...empire of credit card fraud.
That's mind-blowing.
That's when he spotted someone tailing him on the road, taking an exit and making 4 left turns. He snakes the guy off. Was it the Russians? Maybe Maxim? Maybe
yeah.
The feds. And Albert decides to lay low at his hideout.
I'm gonna get him.
Now, the next day, Stephen, Toey, Jonathan, and Chris woke up to FBI raids. Computers were seized, indictments released, and headlines broke around the world behind the crew who was behind the biggest hack in history. And all because of that Maxim's arrest. But the man they were looking for the most, he was still on the loose.
Albert's gonna get away,
Reading the indictment, Jonathan James felt betrayed. Albert wasn't
Toey. What a name.
For the Secret Service while they were paying him to hack credit cards. Clearly this whole thing had been a setup. It was all entrapment. And while Jonathan had a minor role in all of this, he felt Albert really set him up to go to prison for this. I mean, given that he had a prior hacking charge for hacking the NASA at 16, he knew the feds were gonna go after his ass so hard. So Jonathan, fearing he would rot in prison for the rest of his life and that he would never see a fair trial, wrote this note to his family. I honestly had nothing to do with TJ Maxx. I have no faith in the justice system. Albert Gonzalez is one of the most destructive and dangerous hackers. They'll let him off easy because I'm a juicier target. Sitting in jail for 20 years for a crime I didn't commit is not me winning. I die free. Tragically, he would end it all, based on the assumption that Albert had set him up. But perhaps if he had only waited a bit of time. He would have found out that they actually were after Albert. Jonathan's father would say to Wired magazine, he hadn't been arrested, he hadn't been charged,
Poor
he hadn't
guy.
been tried, he hadn't been sentenced. I just don't know what the rush was.
I probably just the anxiety, the worry.
Little known fact, the lead prosecutor on this case was the same one who would prosecute Aaron Swartz 2 years later, founder of Reddit who would also tragically end his own life right before trial. In one of
the co-founder of Reddit took his own life? I had no
biggest
idea.
manhunts in Miami, the Secret Service somehow discovered Albert hiding out at the National Hotel in Miami. Inside, he had a 6-foot-tall Estonian escort, Glock 27,
she's
laptops,
so hot.
thousands of dollars, and fake passports. If not an hour later, Albert would have been out of the country. But when he heard the helicopters overhead, he knew it was too late.
Oh my God!
And after a 7-year-long hunt, raising his hands in defeat, Albert surrendered. Looking down the barrel of a 20-year prison sentence, Albert admits to it all. He abused his position as an informant to enrich himself, his crew, and the Russian mob. He'd used his talents to inflict more financial harm than ever seen before. And worst of all, he had backstabbed Agent Ward, his only friend, when Albert had nothing.
Nah, fuck him. He's not a friend. He's not a hacker. He's a federal agent. Don't you think the feds are your friends? Grrr.
Now, trying to gain sympathy from the court, Albert revealed where he had buried millions of dollars. He had a psychologist legally diagnose him as a computer addict and said that he didn't know any better from all of this hacking because
I'm a computer
he was
addict.
autistic, and said he just couldn't help himself from hacking. But when the courts read Albert's messages out loud to Maxim, it was very clear he knew what the hell he was doing. I have a goal. I want to buy a yacht like Roman Abramovich. He's like this Russian oligarch who owns a $700 million yacht. Now, while it's easy to say Albert screwed over the banks, the reality is people like you and me he f***ed over. Imagine waking up one day to see $0 in your checking account and you got to pay rent that day. I mean, it could take months to get that money back, and to do this on a systematic scale is so up. I mean, on the low end, Albert cost about $300 million in damages. On the high end, it's estimated over $1 billion. And the craziest part is that Albert only made a couple $1 million from this. Now, while Albert's associates got 2 to 5 years in prison, Albert was given the longest sentence ever given to a hacker, 20 years in maximum security, with
When did he get sentenced?
$172 million.
2007? Dude, he's going
but
out
at the Dire
soon!
Baker Turkey prison, considered one of the worst on earth, Maxim was sentenced to 30
oh my gosh.
years in prison. Now, last year, Albert was released, although it is unknown where he's at today. And while companies love to blame us for credit card fraud, just remember, all of these credit cards were stolen not because their PIN number wasn't covered, but because the companies didn't secure it.
Use Surfshark. I thought he was gonna do an ad-lib. God, that was good. Guys, do you think he's gonna hack again? Fuck the feds. Just this anger. Seething, angry. Yeah. Round of applause. Vince Vintage, love that. That was good. Great stuff. Yeah, would you hacker me and then get like a 6-foot Estonian escort and pork her brains out in a hotel in Miami? I bet you would.